Welcome back, everybody. It is Wednesday, August 12th, 2026. We left off on Genesis 28, verse 1. Chapter 1. Then Isaac called Jacob and blessed him and directed him, You must not take a wife from the Canaanite women. Arise, go to Paddan Aram, to the house of Bethuel, your mother's father, and take as your wife from there one of the daughters of Laban, your mother's brother. God Almighty bless you and make you fruitful and multiply you, that you may become a company of peoples. May he give the blessing of Abraham to you and to your offspring with you, that you may take possession of the land of your sojournings that God gave to Abraham. Thus Isaac sent Jacob away, and he went to Paddan Aram, to Laban, the son of Bethuel, the Aramean, the brother of Rebekah, Jacob's and Esau's mother. Now Esau saw that Isaac had blessed Jacob and sent him away to Paddan Aram to take a wife from there, and that as he blessed him, he directed him, You must not take a wife from the Canaanite women. And that Jacob had obeyed his father and his mother, and had gone to Paddan Aram. So when Esau saw that the Canaanite women did not please Isaac his father, Esau went to Ishmael and took as his wife, besides the wives he had, Mahalath, the daughter of Ishmael, Abraham's son, the sister of Nebaioth. Is that Nebaioth? Nebaioth? Jacob left Beersheba and went toward Haran, and he came to a certain place and stayed there that night, because the sun had set. Taking one of the stones of the place, he put it under his head and lay down in that place to sleep. Man, they were sleeping on stones. And he dreamed, and behold, there was a ladder set up on the earth, and the top of it reached to heaven. And behold, the angels of God were ascending and descending on it. And behold, the Lord stood above it and said, I am the Lord, the God of Abraham your father, and the God of Isaac. The land on which you lie I will give to you and to your offspring. Your offspring shall be like the dust of the earth, and you shall spread abroad to the west and to the east and to the north and to the south. And in you and your offspring shall all the families of the earth be blessed. Behold, I am with you and will keep you wherever you go, and will bring you back to this land. For I will not leave you until I have done what I have promised you. Then Jacob awoke from his sleep and said, Surely the Lord is in this place, and I did not know it. And he was afraid and said, How awesome is this place! This is none other than the house of God, and this is the gate of heaven. So early in the morning, Jacob took the stone that he had put under his head and set it up for a pillar and poured oil on top of it. He called the name of that place Bethel, but the name of the city was Luz at the first. Then Jacob made a vow, saying, If God will be with me and will keep me in this way that I go, and will give me bread to eat and clothing to wear, so that I come again to my father's house in peace, then the Lord shall be my God, and this stone which I have set up for a pillar shall be God's house, and of all that you give me I will give a full tenth to you. Genesis 29, verse 1. Then Jacob went on his journey and came to the land of the people of the east. As he looked, he saw a well in the field, and behold, 3 flocks of sheep lying beside it. For out of that well the flocks were watered. The stone on the well's mouth was large, and when all the flocks were gathered there, the shepherds would roll the stone from the mouth of the well and water the sheep, and put the stone back in its place over the mouth of the well. Jacob said to them, My brothers, where do you come from? They said, We are from Haran. He said to them, Do you know Laban the son of Nahor, They said, "We know him." He said to them, "Is it well with him?" They said, "It is well, and see, Rachel his daughter is coming with the sheep." He said, "Behold, it is still high day. It is not time for the livestock to be gathered together. Water the sheep and go, pasture them." But they said, "We cannot until all the flocks are gathered together and the stone is rolled from the mouth of the well. Then we water the sheep." While he was still speaking with them, Rachel came with her father's sheep, for she was a shepherdess. Now as soon as Jacob saw Rachel, the daughter of Laban, his mother's brother, And now as soon as Jacob saw Rachel, the daughter of Laban, his mother's brother, his uncle, so his cousin. Okay, so that's his cousin. Now as soon as Jacob saw Rachel, his cousin, and the sheep of Laban, his mother's brother, Jacob came near and rolled the stone from the well's mouth and watered the flock of Laban, his mother's brother. Then Jacob kissed Rachel and wept aloud. What? And Jacob told Rachel that he was her father's kinsman and that he was Rebekah's son. And she ran and told her father. As soon as Laban heard the news about Jacob, his sister's son, he ran to meet him and embraced him and kissed him and brought him to his house. Jacob told Laban all these things. And Laban said to him, "Surely you are my bone and my flesh." And he stayed with him a month. Then Laban said to Jacob, "Because you are my kinsman, should you therefore serve me for nothing? Tell me, what shall your wages be?" Now Laban had 2 daughters. The name of the older was Leah, and the name of the younger was Rachel. Leah's eyes were weak, but Rachel was beautiful in form and appearance. Jacob loved Rachel, and he said, "I will serve you 7 years for your younger daughter Rachel." Laban said, "It is better that I give her to you than that I should give her to any other man. Stay with me." So Jacob served 7 years for Rachel, and they seemed to him but a few days because of the love he had for her. Then Jacob said to Laban, "Give me my wife, that I may go into her, for my time is completed." So Laban gathered together all the people of the place and made a feast. But in the evening he took his daughter Leah and brought her to Jacob. And he went into her. In the evening he took his daughter Leah, not Rachel, and brought her to Jacob, and they had sex. Laban gave his female servant Zilpah to his daughter Leah to be her servant. And in the morning, behold, it was Leah. And Jacob said to Laban, "What is this you have done to me? Did I not serve you for Rachel?" How did he not know? Was he drunk? How would you not know that was... But anyway, I guess there was no lights back then, but still. Okay, my bad. Go back. Verse 25. And in the morning, behold, it was Leah. And Jacob said to Laban, "What is this you have done to me? Did I not serve with you for Rachel? Why then have you deceived me?" Laban said, "It is not so done in our country, to give the younger before the firstborn. Complete the week of this one, and we will give you the other also in return for serving me another 7 years." Complete the week. I think a week is, in biblical terms, is a year, but we'll ask about that in a second. Jacob did so and completed her week. Then Laban gave him his daughter Rachel to be his wife. Laban gave his female servant Bilhah to his daughter Rachel to be her servant. So Jacob went in to Rachel also, and he loved Rachel more than Leah, and served Laban for another 7 years. Okay, so let's ask about this portion here, because I mean, maybe there's nothing to it, but still, it seems a bit odd that he would. How do we interpret this? How is it that Jacob, who had spent significant time with Rachel to this point, and Leah, did not know the difference when Leah was brought to him instead of Rachel? The text itself does not explain exactly how Jacob failed to recognize Leah, so any reconstruction has to distinguish what Genesis says from what is plausible. But several features of the story make the deception quite understandable in the ancient setting. The key observation is that Genesis emphasizes in the evening, and then in the morning, behold, it was Leah. That contrast is probably deliberate. Jacob did not discover the substitution until daylight. Well, obviously, but they had sex, so I mean, you would think, I don't know. I suppose it doesn't really matter. Darkness. There was obviously no electric illumination, and the bridal chamber could have been extremely dark. Yeah, I mean, I suppose if they had no physical contact prior, and that was the first time they were like literally physically touching somebody, like for the first time, you wouldn't know what they felt like, so you would have nothing to compare it to, I suppose. That could be it. It also says, the Bible never says Jacob was drunk, but he could have been a little tipsy, whatever. It doesn't really matter. All right, let's go back. Okay, so now, but finally he got Rachel anyway. Okay, verse 31. When the Lord saw that Leah was hated, he opened her womb, but Rachel was barren. And Leah conceived and bore a son, and she called his name Reuben, for she said, because the Lord has looked upon my affliction, for now my husband will love me. So he's married to both of them. Okay. She conceived again and bore a son and said, because the Lord has heard that I am hated, he has given me this son also. And she called his name Simeon. Again she conceived and bore a son and said, now this time my husband will be attached to me, because I have borne him 3 sons. Therefore his name was called Levi. And she conceived again and bore a son and said, this time I will praise the Lord. Therefore she called his name Judah. Then she ceased bearing. Genesis 30, verse 1. When Rachel saw that she bore Jacob no children, she envied her sister. She said to Jacob, give me children, or I shall die. Jacob's anger was kindled against Rachel, and he said, am I in the place of God, who has withheld from you the fruit of the womb? Then she said, here is my servant Bilhah. Go into her, so that she may give birth on my behalf, that even I may have children through her. So she gave him her servant Bilhah as a wife, and Jacob went into her. And Bilhah conceived and bore Jacob a son. Then Rachel said, God has judged me, and has also heard my voice, and given me a son. Therefore she called his name Dan. Rachel's servant Bilhah conceived again, and bore Jacob a second son. Then Rachel said, with mighty wrestlings I have wrestled with my sister, and have prevailed. So she called his name Naphtali. When Leah saw that she had ceased bearing children, she took her servant Zilpah and gave her to Jacob as a wife. Then Leah's servant Zilpah bore Jacob a son, and Leah said, good fortune has come. So she called his name Gad. Leah's servant Zilpah bore Jacob a second son, and Leah said, happy am I, for women have called me happy. So she called his name Asher. In the days of wheat harvest, Reuben went and found mandrakes in the field and brought them to his mother Leah. When Rachel said to Leah, please give me some of your son's mandrakes. But she said to her, is it a small matter that you have taken away my husband? Would you take away my son's mandrakes also? What are mandrake? What are mandrakes? Mandrakes are plants that were well known in the ancient Mediterranean. They became important immediately afterward in the Jacob, Rachel, Leah story. What do they matter in Genesis? Wait, what are they? Oh, they're like little fruits. We call these tomatillos in my house. Mandrakes produce small yellow-orange fruits and have thick, sometimes forked root. Okay, so it's food. Okay. All right, let's go back. When Jacob came from the field in the evening, Leah went out to meet him and said, "You must come in to me, for I have hired you with my sons, mandrakes." Wait, I missed a part. Hold on. Okay, but she said to her, "Is it a small matter that you have taken away my husband? Would you take away my sons' mandrakes also?" Rachel said, "Then he may lie with you tonight in exchange for your sons' mandrakes." When Jacob came from the field in the evening, Leah went out to meet him and said, "You must come in to me, for I have hired you with my sons' mandrakes." So he lay with her that night. And God listened to Leah, and she conceived and bore Jacob a fifth son. Leah said, "God has given me my wages because I gave my servant to my husband." So she called his name Issachar. And Leah conceived again, and she bore Jacob a sixth son. Then Leah said, "God has endowed me with a good endowment. Now my husband will honor me, because I have borne him 6 sons." So she called his name Zebulun. Afterward she bore a daughter and called her name Dinah. Then God remembered Rachel, and God listened to her and opened her womb. She conceived and bore a son and said, "God has taken away my reproach." And she called his name Joseph, saying, "May the Lord add to me another son." As soon as Rachel had borne Joseph, Jacob said to Laban, "Send me away, that I may go to my own home and country. Give me my wives and my children, for whom I have served you, that I may go, for you know the service that I have given you." But Laban said to him, "If I have found favor in your sight, I have learned by divination that the Lord has blessed me because of you. Name your wages, and I will give it." Jacob said to him, "You yourself know how I have served you, and how your livestock has fared with me. For you had little before I came, and it has increased abundantly. And the Lord has blessed you wherever I turned. But now, when shall I provide for my own household also?" He said, "What shall I give you?" Jacob said, "You shall not give me anything. If you will do this for me, I will again pasture your flock and keep it. Let me pass through all your flock today, removing from it every speckled and spotted sheep and every black lamb, and the spotted and speckled among the goats, and they shall be my wages. So my honesty will answer for me later, when you come to look into my wages with you. Everyone that is not speckled and spotted among the goats and black among the lambs, if found with me, shall be counted stolen." Laban said, "Good, let it be as ye have said." But that day Laban removed the male goats that were striped and spotted, and all the female goats that were speckled and spotted, every one that had white on it, and every lamb that was black, and put them in the charge of his sons. That's messed up. And he set a distance of 3 days' journey between himself and Jacob pastured the rest of Laban's flock. So he's doing him dirty, basically. Then Jacob took fresh sticks of poplar and almond and plane trees, and peeled white streaks in them, exposing the white of the sticks. He set the sticks that he had peeled in front of the flocks in the troughs, that is, the watering places, where the flocks come to drink. And since they bred when they came to drink, the flocks bred in front of the sticks, and so the flocks brought forth striped, speckled, and spotted. And Jacob separated the lambs and set the faces of the flocks toward the striped and all the black in the flock of Laban. He put his own droves apart and did not put them with Laban's flock. Whenever the stronger of the flock were breeding, Jacob would lay the sticks in the troughs before the eyes of the flock. that they might breed among the sticks. But for the feebler of the flock, he would not lay them there. So the feebler would be Laban's, and the stronger Jacob's. Thus the man increased greatly and had large flocks, female servants and male servants, and camels and donkeys. Okay, I'm not sure what's happening. Can you give a one-paragraph summary of what is happening in Genesis 30? Are they double-crossing each other, or what is going on? It sounds like they're like outsmarting each other. Genesis 30 is basically a chapter about family rivalry, desperation, and shrewd bargaining. With God continuing to bless Jacob despite the mess, Rachel and Leah compete intensely over having children because Rachel is initially barren. Okay, I got that part, but what about the... Okay. Okay, then the story shifts to Jacob and Laban, where the are they double crossing each other question comes about. Jacob wants to leave, but Laban knows he has prospered because of Jacob and persuades him to stay. They negotiate wages. Jacob will receive the unusually colored sheep and goats. Laban immediately removes those animals that he would have gotten had he honored the deal from the flock and puts them far away, apparently trying to prevent Jacob from building up his own herd. Jacob responds with a breeding strategy involving peeled branches and selective breeding, and his flocks become extremely strong and numerous. So yes, there is a contest of cunning between Jacob and Laban. Although the chapter presents Laban as trying to manipulate the arrangement first and Jacob as countering him, the larger point is that Jacob is becoming prosperous in spite of Laban's maneuvering. Okay. Right, because God said he would bless him nonetheless, so he's going to be successful. All right. Genesis 31, verse 1. Now Jacob heard that the sons of Laban were saying, Jacob has taken all that was our father's, and from what was our father's, he has gained all this wealth. And Jacob saw that Laban did not regard him with favor as before. Then the Lord said to Jacob, return to the land of your fathers and to your kindred, and I will be with you. So Jacob sent and called Rachel and Leah into the field where his flock was, and said to them, I see that your father does not regard me with favor as he did before. But the God of my father has been with me. You know that I have served your father with all my strength, yet your father has cheated me and changed my wages 10 times. But God did not permit him to harm me. If he said, the spotted shall be your wages, then all the flock bore spotted. And if he said, the striped shall be your wages, then all the flock bore striped. Thus God has taken away the livestock of your father and given them to me. Oh, I see. So all the newborns, although the spotted and the striped would normally be the outliers, meaning there wouldn't be very many of them, they would be the minority. Because Laban tried to double cross him, every newborn started coming out either spotted or striped based on the negotiations. Okay. Verse 10, in the breeding season of the flock, I lifted up my eyes and saw in a dream that the goats that mated with the flock were striped, spotted, and mottled. Mottled? Then the angel of God said to me in the dream, Jacob, and I said, here I am. And he said, lift up your eyes and see. All the goats that mate with the flock are striped, spotted, and mottled, for I have seen all that Laban is doing to you. I am the God of Bethel, where you anointed a pillar and made a vow to me. Now arise, go out from this land, and return to the land of your kindred. Then Rachel and Leah answered and said to him, is there any portion or inheritance left to us in our father's house? Are we not regarded by him as foreigners? For he has sold us, and he has indeed devoured our money. All the wealth that God has taken away from our father belongs to us and to our children. Now then, whatever God has said to you, do. So Jacob arose and set his sons and his wives on camels. He drove away all his livestock, all his property that he had gained, the livestock in his possession that he had acquired in Paddan Aram, to go to the land of Canaan to his father Isaac. Laban had gone to shear his sheep, and Rachel stole her father's household gods. And Jacob tricked Laban, the Aramean, by not telling him that he intended to flee. He fled with all that he had and arose and crossed the Euphrates and set his face toward the hill country of Gilead. When it was told Laban on the third day that Jacob had fled, he took his kinsmen with him and pursued him for 7 days and followed close after him into the hill country of Gilead. But God came to Laban the Aramean in a dream by night and said to him, "Be careful not to say anything to Jacob, either good or bad." And Laban overtook Jacob. Now Jacob had pitched his tent in the hill country, and Laban with his kinsmen pitched tents in the hill country of Gilead. And Laban said to Jacob, "What have you done, that you have tricked me and driven away my daughters like captives of the sword? Why did you flee secretly and trick me, and did not tell me, so that I might have sent you away with myrrh and songs, with tambourine and lyre? And why did you not permit me to kiss my sons and my daughters farewell? Now you have done foolishly. It is in my power to do you harm, but the God of your father spoke to me last night, saying, 'Be careful not to say anything to Jacob, either good or bad.' And now you have gone away because you long greatly for your father's house. But why did you steal my gods?" Jacob answered and said to Laban, "Because I was afraid, for I thought that you would take your daughters from me by force. Anyone with whom you find your gods shall not live." Well, hold on. What verse? This is verse 30. Let me just ask this. When they say gods in this context, what are they talking about? Are they idols or statues? Did he not worship Yahweh? Because obviously he is listening to God, Yahweh. So who are these gods? Lowercase g. In Genesis 31:30, when Laban says, "Why did you steal my gods?" he is talking about physical household idols, not Yahweh, obviously. The Hebrew word is teraphim, usually translated household gods or household idols. Also just literally little totems or whatever. What exactly did Rachel steal? A few verses earlier, Rachel stole her father's household gods. Yeah, we read that. These teraphim were apparently portable physical religious objects, probably figurines or small statues representing household or ancestral deities. Okay. But did Laban worship Yahweh? This is where the story gets especially interesting. Laban clearly knows about Yahweh and acknowledges him, but the narrative does not portray him as exclusively worshiping Yahweh. That is interesting. Earlier, Laban tells Jacob, "The Lord, Yahweh, has blessed me because of you." So he even acknowledges his supernatural power, which is even more interesting, but still doesn't worship him exclusively. And in Genesis 31:29, immediately before mentioning his stolen gods, Laban says, "The God of your father spoke to me last night." Oh, the God of your father, not our God. So Laban recognizes Jacob's God and apparently takes his warning seriously. Yet one verse later, he calls the teraphim my gods. That combination makes good sense in the ancient Near Eastern religious environment. A person could acknowledge Yahweh as a genuine and powerful deity without believing that Yahweh was the only God who should be worshipped. Laban apparently maintained household gods alongside his recognition of Jacob's God. Oh, that's interesting. Okay. Complex, I suppose, but just like it is today, in terms of what people believe in their head. Okay, verse 31. Jacob answered and said to Laban, "Because I was afraid, for I thought that you would take your daughters from me by force. Anyone with whom you find your gods shall not live." In the presence of our kinsmen, point out what I have that is yours and take it. Now Jacob did not know that Rachel had stolen them. So Laban went into Jacob's tent and into Leah's tent and into the tent of the 2 female servants, but he did not find them. And he went out of Leah's tent and entered Rachel's. Now Rachel had taken the household gods and put them in the camel's saddle and sat on them. Laban felt all about the tent, but did not find them. And she said to her father, "Let not my lord be angry that I cannot rise before you, for the way of women is upon me." So he searched, but did not find the household gods. Oh, wait, what does that mean? Let my lord not be angry. Wait, let not my lord be angry that I cannot rise before you. Oh, she's lying. So she's saying, she's lying about being on her period. So she's saying, forgive me for not getting up and greeting you, because she was sitting on the gods underneath the camel's saddle. Very tricky. Okay, verse 36. Then Jacob became angry and berated Laban. Jacob said to Laban, "What is my offense? What is my sin that you have hotly pursued me? For you have felt through all my goods. What have you found of all your household goods? Set it here before my kinsmen and your kinsmen, that they may decide between us two. These 20 years I have been with you. Your ewes and your female goats have not miscarried, and I have not eaten the rams of your flocks. What was torn by wild beast I did not bring to you. I bore the loss of it myself. From my hand you required it, whether stolen by day or stolen by night. There I was. By the day the heat consumed me, and the cold by night, and my sleep fled from my eyes. These 20 years I have been in your house. I served you 14 years for your 2 daughters, and 6 years for your flock, and you have changed my wages 10 times. If the God of my father, the God of Abraham, and the fear of Isaac had not been on my side, surely now you would have sent me away empty-handed. God saw my affliction and the labor of my hands and rebuked you last night." Then Laban answered and said to Jacob, "The daughters are my daughters, the children are my children, the flocks are my flocks, and all that you see is mine. But what can I do this day for these my daughters, or for their children whom they have borne? Come now, let us make a covenant, you and I, and let it be a witness between you and me." So Jacob took a stone and set it up as a pillar. And Jacob said to his kinsmen, "Gather stones." And they took stones and made a heap, and they ate there by the heap. Laban called it Jegar Sahadutha. Hagar Sahadutha. Okay. But Jacob called it Galeed. Laban said, "This heap is a witness between you and me today." Therefore he named it Galeed. And Mizpah, for he said, "The Lord watch between you and me, when we are out of one another's sight. If you oppress my daughters, or if you take wives besides my daughters, although no one is with us, see, God is witness between you and me." It rhymes. Then Laban said to Jacob, "See this heap and the pillar, which I have set between you and me. This heap is a witness, and the pillar is a witness, that I will not pass over this heap to you, and you will not pass over this heap and this pillar to me, to do harm. The God of Abraham and the God of Nahor, the God of their father, judge between us." So Jacob swore by the fear of his father Isaac, and Jacob offered a sacrifice in the hill country and called his kinsmen to eat bread. They ate bread and spent the night in the hill country. Early in the morning, Laban arose and kissed his grandchildren and his daughters and blessed them. Then Laban departed and returned home. Genesis 32, verse 1. Jacob went on his way, and the angels of God met him. And when Jacob saw them, he said, "This is God's camp." So he called the name of that place Mahanaim. And Jacob sent messengers before him to Esau his brother in the land of Seir, the country of Edom, instructing them Thus you shall say to my lord Esau, Thus says your servant Jacob, I have sojourned with Laban and stayed until now. I have oxen, donkeys, flocks, male servants, and female servants. I have sent to tell my lord in order that I may find favor in your sight. And the messengers returned to Jacob, saying, We came to your brother Esau, and he is coming to meet you, and there are 400 men with him. Then Jacob was greatly afraid and distressed. He divided the people who were with him and the flocks and herds and camels into 2 camps, thinking, If Esau comes to one camp and attacks it, then the camp that is left will escape. And Jacob said, O God of my father Abraham and God of my father Isaac, O Lord, who said to me, Return to your country and to your kindred, that I may do you good. I am not worthy of the least of all the deeds of steadfast love and all the faithfulness that you have shown to your servant. For with only my staff I crossed this Jordan, and now I have become 2 camps. Please deliver me from the hand of my brother, from the hand of Esau, for I fear him, that he may come and attack me, the mothers with the children. But you said, I will surely do you good, and make your offspring as the sand of the sea, which cannot be numbered for multitude. So he stayed there that night, and from what he had with him he took a present for his brother Esau, 200 female goats and 20 male goats, 200 ewes and 20 rams, 30 milking camels and their calves, 40 cows and 10 bulls, 20 female donkeys and 10 male donkeys. These he handed over to his servants, every drove by itself, and said to his servants, Pass on ahead of me, and put a space between drove and drove. He instructed the first, When Esau my brother meets you and asks you, To whom do you belong? Where are you going? And whose are these ahead of you? Then you shall say, They belong to your servant Jacob. They are a present sent to my lord Esau. And moreover, he is behind us. He likewise instructed the second and the third and all who followed the droves. You shall say the same thing to Esau when you find him. And you shall say, Moreover, your servant Jacob is behind us, for he thought, I may appease him with the present that goes ahead of me. And afterward I shall see his face. Perhaps he will accept me. So the present passed on ahead of him, and he himself stayed that night in the camp. The same night he arose and took his 2 wives, his 2 female servants, and his 11 children, and crossed the ford of the Jabbok. He took them and sent them across the stream and everything else that he had, and Jacob was left alone. And a man wrestled with him until the breaking of the day. And a man wrestled with him until the breaking of the day. What does that mean? Explain the meaning behind this verse. Genesis 32:24 is one of the most significant turning points in Jacob's life. The verse is not merely about a mysterious wrestling match. It is about Jacob being brought to the end of his own strength and emerging with a new identity and a deeper dependence on God. The larger context matters. Jacob is about to meet his brother Esau, whom he had deceived years earlier. Jacob is terrified that Esau may kill him and his family. He sends his possessions and family across the Jabbok River, and then, it says, and Jacob was left alone, and a man wrestled with him until the breaking of the day. Jacob was left alone. This is important. Jacob had spent much of his life maneuvering, bargaining, planning, and trying to secure his future through his own cleverness. He deceived Esau, manipulated circumstances with Laban, and now carefully arranged gifts and groups to protect himself from Esau. Eventually there was nobody left around him, No possessions, no family, no strategy between him and what he fears. Just Jacob and God. There is a spiritual principle here. Sometimes God meets a person most profoundly when everything they normally rely upon has been stripped away. Well, that's beautiful. I can vouch for that. A man wrestled with him. What does that part mean? A man wrestled with him. At first, Genesis calls the mysterious figure simply a man, but the rest of the passage makes clear that this encounter is extraordinary. Afterward, Jacob says, "For I have seen God face to face, and yet my life has been delivered." Okay. The prophet Hosea later describes Jacob as wrestling with both God and an angel. So the figure represents a divine encounter. Christian interpreters have differed over whether this was an angelic manifestation of God or a theophany, which is a theophany being a visible manifestation of God himself. This always confuses me because other parts in the Bible it says no one can, or God says himself that no one can look at him and survive. And so I guess, I suppose a manifestation is different than his actual presence. But the theological point is striking. Jacob has spent his entire life wrestling to obtain blessing. Now he literally wrestles with the one from whom blessing ultimately comes. Okay, so they're talking about either an angel or perhaps a manifestation of God. So let's go back and read it then instead of reading it through chat. Let's see. Okay, verse 24. And Jacob was left alone, and a man wrestled with him until the breaking of the day. When the man saw that he did not prevail against Jacob, he touched his hip socket. And Jacob's hip was put out of joint as he wrestled with him. Then he said, "Let me go, for the day has broken." But Jacob said, "I will not let you go unless you bless me." And he said to him, "What is your name?" And he said, "Jacob." Then he said, "Your name shall no longer be called Jacob, but Israel, for you have striven with God and with men, and have prevailed." Then Jacob asked him, "Please tell me your name." But he said, "Why is it that you ask my name?" And there he blessed him. So Jacob called the name of the place Peniel, saying, "For I have seen God face to face, and yet my life has been delivered." Okay, so this is a hard one for me to swallow. Not that I don't understand how it can be God himself. But I don't understand. Let's do another one, because now that I've read it more, that's a pretty strong claim even for the Old Testament. How is it that theologians reconcile this to other parts of the Bible where it clearly states that nobody has seen the Father other than Jesus, and also that if anybody should lay eyes on God, they would die? This is one of the classic biblical passages behind a major theological question. How can Jacob say, "I have seen God face to face," when Scripture elsewhere says that no human being can see God and live? And the New Testament says, Jesus says, that no one has seen the Father other than himself. The main answer in historic Christian theology is that seeing God, in quotes, seeing God, does not always mean seeing God in his unveiled divine essence. Genesis 32 is usually understood as God making himself perceptible through a mediated manifestation, which is a theophany. Many Christian theologians go further and interpret Jacob's mysterious man as a Christophany, that is, a pre-incarnate appearance of the Son, of Jesus. So the apparent contradiction, you have three sets of texts that need to be held together. There's Genesis 32 begins very deliberately, a man wrestled with him. But by the end, Jacob concludes, I have seen God face to face, and yet my life has been delivered. Then you have passages such as Exodus 33:20, where God tells Moses, you cannot see my face, for man shall not see me and live. So God himself says that directly to Moses. And the New Testament makes an even stronger statement. No one has ever, Jesus says this, no one has ever seen God, the only God who is at the Father's side. He has made him known. Similarly, Jesus says, John says that. Perhaps John said that. And then Jesus says, not that anyone has seen the Father except he who is from God. He has seen the Father, referring to himself. At first glance, those statements seem very difficult to reconcile. So, number one, the traditional distinction, God's essence versus God's manifestation. The most common theological solution is a distinction between seeing God as between seeing God as God truly is in his infinite unveiled glory and seeing a manifestation that God chooses to make perceptible to human beings. Okay, that's a good way to put it. Exodus itself strongly suggests this distinction. In Exodus 33:11, we are told, thus the Lord used to speak to Moses face to face as a man speaks to his friend. Yet only 9 verses later, he says, you cannot see my face, for man shall not see me and live. If face to face meant exactly the same thing in both verses, Exodus would contradict itself almost immediately. Instead, face to face in the first instance means something like direct personal encounter rather than indirect revelation. Okay. Moses genuinely encounters Yahweh, but he does not behold God's unmediated divine essence or glory. That provides a framework for Jacob as well. Jacob really encounters God, but that does not necessarily mean that Jacob's human eyes perceived the infinite divine nature himself. Okay, all right, let's go back. Okay, so where were we? We're near the end here. Okay, it says, please tell me your name. But he said, why is it that you ask my name? And there he blessed him. So Jacob called the name of the place Peniel, saying, for I have seen God face to face, and yet my life has been delivered. The sun rose upon him as he passed Peniel, limping because of his hip. Therefore, to this day, the people of Israel do not eat the sinew of the thigh that is on the hip socket, because he touched the socket of Jacob's hip on the sinew of the thigh. Well, that's interesting. Okay. Well, that's a lot. All right. Okay, so now we're on to Genesis 33, verse 1. But this is a good spot to stop for the night. So we'll pick it up tomorrow on Genesis 33, verse 1. Thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to drop a sub, share it with a friend. God bless you guys, and good night.